This is the Seven Figure Standard Podcast, hosted by Arash Vasugi and Mikey Stiller, with mindset and strategies to help you break through and create personal freedom.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Seven Figure Standard Podcast. I'm Mikey Stiller, joined by my co-host, Arash Vasugi, and today we're going to talk about becoming elite. Now, when I say becoming elite, your mind could go in a lot of different directions, and I'm excited to get into this topic today because becoming elite is not as far away as you may think. All right, Arash, let's jump right to it. What does becoming elite mean to you?
The first thing that comes to mind when you say that I think back to all of where I was to where I came was in my training and the consistency of my training. And what I'm talking about is my mental training plus action. And it's the consistent action over time that really creates elite behaviors and elite results. You know, I was on a call with a friend of mine today, and he said to me, well, why do you think some people it works for personal development and others? I said, I don't think that. I think it works for everybody. I said, what I mean by that is everybody who goes deep enough and works the idea works for every individual. I said, the challenge is most people want to come in and not change the behaviors and expect different results. They'll read the books, but they don't implement it. They'll come get mentors, not do what the mentor tells them, and they're not going to get the results. Elite is about a healthy obsession of getting better. See, I think if you study any elite performer, whether it's athletes, actors, entrepreneurs, any walks of life, the one commonality is they're obsessed with doing what they love, and they're obsessed about getting better and learning. I always talk to you about this, Mikey. For me, learning is so sacred because we can always be better. We can always, even if we do excellent, we always know you could have even done better. And that is what really I think about when I think about elite.
All right, I want to tell you what I think of so I can get your thoughts on it. When I hear becoming elite, I don't think of one group of people as elite and others not. I think that there's an elite version of everybody. But to be elite, you have to do things a little bit differently. You have to have a positive mental attitude. You have to build a bigger idea of yourself. You have to do so many of the things that we're talking about on the podcast, not just once or twice or every once in a while, but like you said, consistently and over a pretty long period of time. But for some reason, a lot of people don't want to do something over and over again. We talk about repetition is the only way to change the program other than an emotional impact. But a lot of people don't want to do the repetition. So we talk about how becoming elite isn't necessarily a fun process.
Yeah, I was thinking about what you were saying, and I do believe there's elite in every single person. It's whether they have the desire to do the work that's going to be hard in the beginning, that's going to be very muddy in the middle, and then it's going to be part of your identity at the end. I think of a good example is professional athletes to me. Like I think of professional athletes, and have you ever noticed they all are extremely gifted? They, but what is the difference between the ones that really do it? It's their mindset and it's their work ethic. And, they have that dog mentality of getting better. You could see it over all walks of life. And now you could take it to an entrepreneur or somebody who's just so sick and tired of being sick and tired. They're willing to do the training where they don't see the results. It's not because they don't want to see the results, but they understand the process of doing it. And I think once you get that little glimpse of that result, it becomes so infectious in your spirit that it's like, okay, now I want to anchor this and do this all the time. And it's almost like a drug to get back that feeling. See, I always tell anybody I mentor, when you lose, I want you to remember it. I want you to feel it. I want you to feel that pain when you didn't do that one other thing that was so easy to do, but it was easy not to do. And I said, I want you to feel it so you never feel it again. And I'm always telling them that because I can remember my losses a lot more than my wins. I learned so much more from my losses than I did my wins. Right away, my losses will come to mind, not because I focus on them, but it had this pain point to me that ended up motivating me to create the wins. I always talk about courage. You cannot become elite without courage. You have to bet on yourself. But courage is not a one-time act, but it's a constant test of our resolve and willingness to face the unknown. That's a quote from Seneca. And it is a constant test of our resolve when to have courage, when we don't see it, but we're still stepping into the unknown. And that's what it takes when you're not seeing the results. You're doing the repetition, which is so illogical. That's why most people don't become elite. It's not because they can't have it. They're a decision away from becoming elite. They're literally a decision away. And then they commit to it with their whole being, with discipline and action. So that's how you become elite. It's consistency mixed with discipline, commitment, and action is going to create elite performance in anything you're doing.
So good. Raj, you brought up professional athletes and how they're so gifted and so talented, but there's something that separates the very best from the rest. And if you hear interviews with any of them, a lot of times they will give credit to their dad or a coach or someone who saw greatness in them and then put the pressure on to drive that greatness out and never let them relent, never let them give up, and kept them moving forward. But not everybody gets the gift of a parent who sees that or has that same drive, or a coach that just sees them that way. What do you do in those scenarios where you don't necessarily have that in your life?
Well, you have to decide, like I said, you have to decide that you're going to be great, and you can find mentorship. It is so easy to find mentorship now. So I don't think that's an excuse people can go to. And I'm not talking just one-on-one mentorship. You can get mentorship from books, and you could learn. You can go on YouTube. You could do podcasts. There's so many ways to really see it. See, the top elite performers, I know very few that were given to them. Like, they had to be hungry. Like, one of the keys of elite behaviors is they're hungry. They want it so bad. They want it. You have to, like I always say this, you have to want it just as much as you want to breathe. Like, I've heard that so many times, and there's nothing more accurate than that. And your life, my life, is not going to get any better by chance. It gets better because we decide to make a change. We decided that we were going to do it. Like, if you looked at us 20 years ago, we were not set up for success, either of us, right? Well, why did we do it? We were so dissatisfied with living that way that we said, we're going to learn. You self-studied marketing, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, you went in and tell them what you did to become a master at it.
I picked up several marketing books and marketing courses and studied them in my off time instead of going out with friends and instead of doing fun things that other 20 and 21-year-olds were doing, so that I could build a career, basically.
Well, if you could do it, anybody can do it. If I can do it, anybody can do it. Here's where we've got to trust our training. We just got done with one of our elite groups that we were working with. And the first thing I told them is, you've got to trust your training. When you trust your training, it's going to change the game, because if you're doing the inside work consistently every day, then your training is going to take over you, because the repetition of doing that inside work consistently, it's going to be a part of your beingness and your identity, and it's just going to take over, and you're going to do it in a different way. It's not like, oh God, I got to try to do it. No, you just step into the greatest essence of you, where your spirit is, and you operate with a relentless attitude.
So good. All right. Once you've mastered subjective control and discipline and so many of these topics that we've already talked about on the podcast, you really don't need to rely on outside motivation or circumstances to motivate you to do the things you need to do every day to be elite, right? You don't need to have these outside circumstances motivating you to do your daily routines that you know are going to take you where you want to go. But until you get to that point where you've mastered subjective control, where you've mastered discipline, what are some things that you can put in place to help you stay on track?
Well, you want to have accountability, number one. You want to find somebody that will hold you accountable when you're not accountable yourself. Eventually, you're going to be able to hold yourself accountable. That's when you're going to get to that elite performance. But you want to find someone first and say, I just want to send you a text every day that I did this. Somebody you trust that is not a dream stealer, somebody that will support you. Accountability is the greatest insurance policy, success insurance policy, because it keeps you on tack. But, out of anything, it's that you've got to look yourself in the mirror and just compete against yourself from yesterday. That's I want you to go to sleep at night and saying, I really beat my own personal best from yesterday. Then tomorrow, do it again. And you're not competing against anybody else. Your ego is going to want you to compete. It's going to think there's only enough, so you've got to get there first. That's not how it works. There's enough of the pie for everybody. The universe is absolutely abundant. And you cannot be attached to the result. So in the beginning, create an outcome that you want and reward yourself. But then what you're going to see as you become more consistent, more deliberate, more purposeful for everything you do, you're going to be more intrinsically motivated by your behaviors, by your processes, which you're going to know that you can create the results. That's called confidence. Confidence is you've developed a certain level of trust in your image of yourself that you're going to do something. And even if you don't know how to do it, you could figure out how to do it.
Yep. Raj, I would love for you to reframe keeping your word to yourself for everybody, because I think all of us have people in our lives that we would never break our word to. Like, I would never tell my husband I would do something and then not do it, or my mom or you or my kids. Like, I would never say, okay, I'm going to pick you up at school today and then not do it. But we feel so much more comfortable breaking our word to ourselves. Will you reframe that to make it difficult to break our word to ourselves?
Well, when we're breaking our word to ourselves, that's a self-image. We're constantly renegotiating with ourselves. And we don't want to do that. See, our self-talk, which is our word, it's not just outside, it's inside words too. And we've got to honor it and be really consistent and congruent with what we say. If we say we're going to do something with ourselves, we have to do it. See, because eventually you're going to stop believing yourself. And when you stop believing yourself, then you're really facing an uphill climb. Mm-hmm. And today's self-talk equals tomorrow's facts. You want to burn that in your mind. That's a quote from Neville. And when you say you're going to do something, do it. Even if, like, let's say you're like, don't overpromise yourself, though. That's the problem. People are overpromising and they're under-delivering. But as you get congruent with yourself, that's a form of self-esteem. And so we want to start really being just as accountable to our word to ourselves as we are, like you said, to your husband or your mom or me or kids or anybody. And once we do that, that's a form of self-mastery.
That's so good. I remember I heard you say every single choice that we make is either building our self-image or tearing down our self-image, which is so important because our self-image, we can't outperform. Why don't you talk about that for a minute as it relates to being elite?
Well, elite demands a certain level of trust in yourself. And you have to, if you're going to create any type of significant results, you have to have a significant image of yourself. See, your image is your boundary of achievement, and your self-image is controlling your life. And when a person improves their image, they change their entire life. But most people don't want to go in. Like I used to be one of them. Oh God, I don't want to say that I have a weak image. Now I look at it as a badge of honor when I find my insecurities, because my insecurities and your insecurities and everyone's insecurity is where their greatest gift is to mastery. So you want to look at it differently. Just know you can never outperform it. So your image is crucial, and your self-talk and action are crucial to creating your image.
Okay, now I want you to tie this together because we have talked a little bit. It's been a while since we talked about double binding message, but someone can say, I want to be elite. I want elite results, but then they're willing to accept. So their standard is well below elite. Tie those together for us. How do you raise your standard before you've achieved the elite results when you know that that's where you want to be?
Well, you've got to, first of all, double binding message is the biggest sabotager every human has. So if you say you want to be elite, now you've got to think, feel, and act. You've got to see yourself at the greatest in your field. Like, I don't care if you're not the greatest yet, you see yourself as the greatest. And you draw that line in the sand saying, I'm not dropping, regardless of the results. I'm going to keep practicing my presentations. I'm going to keep reaching out to clients. I'm going to keep creating partnerships. And now you're starting to act like the person who is, quote unquote, elite at what they do. And you never drop to the results. So let's say somebody says they're elite, then they say, well, I'm going to say I'm going to do something and not do it. Not congruent with elite behavior, drop standard, drop self-image, drop results right away. So you've got to say, what are the behaviors of elite? There's standard, there's discipline, there's attitude, there's communication. You want to be an excellent communicator, excellent listener. And remember, we listen with our emotions. We listen through our intuition. We don't just hear, we hear with our ears. So we want to make every elite performer knows themselves. I promise you they do. They know when their trigger comes and they drop. And they train themselves not to do that anymore. And it takes repetition. They may drop 10 times. They may drop 100 times, but they keep building it and building it and building it. And that's how you will develop and be congruent with your standard, be congruent with your talk, be congruent with doing it. I watch too many people say, oh, I'm really good at this, but I'm not doing it because my family didn't want me to. Or I'm not, well, you're not good at it yet. I promise you. Can you be good? No, you could be great. But you've got to go out and step out of your comfort zone and go to that unknown and have the courage to go to the unknown. Elite is not in the comfort zone. Every elite performer knows they can get better, and their drive is to get better. They have this obsession of getting better, and that is something an elite performer has. And if you don't have that and you don't have the desire for that, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's your choice. But every elite performer cannot understand why somebody wouldn't want to get better. Like, it just does not register. They don't associate with those people because those people are not making them better. They're always looking for tweaks in their game. And I mean their game in terms of their mental game of how they're preparing, how their day is set up, how their presentations are, where they can learn from their mistakes. An elite performer is always looking at where they can get better. They're always looking at their mistakes, and they're looking on how they can learn from those mistakes.
This is so good. We have a lot of clients who we see, take a couple steps forward and then pause or step back, take a couple steps forward and then pause or step back. And so they're not really creating the momentum that they want because they're not constantly moving forward every single day. Whether it's distractions or commitment or whatever it may be, stopping them from taking those consistent ongoing actions every single day. Why do you need the momentum to get there?
You need the momentum because action is the only way you're going to get there. How do you create action? Through the doing. Like Emerson says, do the thing will give you power. He doesn't say think the thing, just think it's going to give you the power. You have that visceral experience. But anybody who is going, then stops, then goes, that's self-image. Okay, they've got to change that. And you've got to will yourself to be great before you're going to be great. You've got to really consistently do things in a certain way before before the way will show itself. The way always shows itself when you make room for the way. And we have to stop holding back. When somebody is stopping, trust me, there was a point in my life I was a master at that. Okay, so I'm not judging it. But I will tell you, the holding back your ideas. Oh, I'm wearing a different mask for these people than I do people I'm comfortable with. You want to be just as confident with people you've never met as you are with people that you've been comfortable around, your friends, your family. And when you do that, you've developed a significant confidence and image of yourself that you will never shrink again. Holding back is a form of shrinking. We want to go in, balls to the walls, enter in the spirit, be relentless, have a great attitude, and just trust ourselves and stop being attached to the outcome. When we are detached from the outcome, it is better than anything we've ever drawn to us. It'll be bigger and better than you think. And elite performance always starts with day one. A lot of people are going to the goal I want to be an elite performer. So they think it's way out in the future. So they give themselves all these outs. They renegotiate with themselves constantly. When you're an elite performer, you seize the moment. We want to seize the moment all the time. And that moment is what we're doing today.
So good. All right, Raj, let's get into the action step for today.
Well, I want you to ask yourself first, am I an elite performer? Where am I measuring that to? And do I want to be an elite performer? Then ask yourself, what one thing can I work on for the next 30 days that will create momentum for me to be an elite performer? What is that one thing? To me, it's always hit go. Like I only know one button, and that's forward. Never think in the past. Hit go and always go forward and be raw with yourself. Like allow yourself to fall. Like if you start getting frustrated, own the frustration. Big deal. Even if it's a waste of time, it was part of what you needed. But hit go, do not hold back, be relentless, and watch what'll start showing up for you.
I love that. All right, Raj, thank you so much. Thank you all for listening to this episode of the 7-Figure Standard podcast. Please leave us a rating, review, and share with your friends and family. And we'll see you for another episode next week.
Thank you for listening to this episode of 7-Figure Standard. We hope you found the insights and strategies helpful on your journey to success. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform to help us reach more people like you. To learn more about Arash and Mikey and how Voss Coach & Co. can help you achieve your goals and reach new levels of success, visit vosscoachandco.com. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of 7-Figure Standard.